Hey there, Tom with Tom's Tech Show. Today we're going to be creating an ec2 instance through the web interface. I was looking around like I moved my controls on OBS and I'm like, where's the button? I need the button for the intro. I didn't know what I did with it. Anyway, so so today we're going to go over, I've done videos on scripts and how you can create ec2 instances with a script, but I want to pull it back a little bit. A couple of videos I'm going to be doing that are more on basics, like you're just getting into it, because having an understanding of how AWS works from the web interface side definitely will help you if you're doing it through PowerShell or CLI or something like that. So I'm just going to kind of go back and kind of redo some of these. I mean, this training, I mean, you could pay a ton of money for Amazon AWS training. You can go get, you know, all these certification things and everything else. I've been more of a let's do it, let's learn it, let's move forward kind of person. So, I mean, nothing's ever kind of held me back from learning all this stuff and moving forward. And most of the people, we had one guy at one company I worked at, he had, oh, I've got 30 certifications, I've got all this blah, 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 everything else. And when it came down to simple problems, he couldn't figure out how to do anything. So it's like, yeah, you can go in and you can memorize and you can take a test, but problem solving and things like that, that is a skill that you need to learn. So if you're getting into computers and I mean, right now, like security is like one of the big things that you would want to get into, because security is getting to be huge, but you need to be able to have diagnostic skills. I mean, memorizing and spitting things out again on a test is, you know, it proves that you can memorize something one day and then remember it the next day, but it doesn't mean you can use it practically in any environment, or when something is wrong, be able to break that down and find out what's wrong and fix it. Okay, but anyway, I digress. Free advice, there you go. Okay, so we're logged into Amazon AWS, and you know, we have a couple of different pieces. So if we've already, it comes with, when you first start and log into Amazon, it comes with a base VPC, which is your virtual private cloud, which is your network. So all the, if you're familiar, right, this kind of grows, AWS kind of grows organically out of, you know, your you have your computer on your desktop, and then you move and maybe you install and do something with like VirtualBox or something, and you get a feel for that and how that works virtualized and stuff, and then you move on and now you're doing bigger things like VMware or Hyper-V. And now we're moving further on from that, and that gets you a bigger, you know, VMware and Hyper-V, especially VMware, gets you kind of an idea of how virtualization works, how all these interfaces flow, how the networking in the back end of something on a server works, and how that kind of flows together. Hyper-V, it's a little bit squirrelier with Hyper-V, but you still get the idea of how it works. Hyper-V kind of translates directly into Azure in the cloud, so the control panels and stuff are extremely different in Azure than just like a regular Hyper-V setup. But both of those give you a real good introduction on kind of what you're doing in AWS. So now we're taking all the stuff that we used to do on premise, now we're putting it in the cloud. So we just have a virtualized network in the cloud that we can define basically through software, some web interface that we can define. And then when we want to create, you know, virtual machines, Amazon just calls them something different. They call them ec2 instances. So Elastic Compute version 2 instances. Okay, so I don't have any here in this region, so we're just going to click launch. And that's going to get us to the first page of what we're going to select. What do we want to run? You can create your own Amazon machine image, or AMI. You can get them from the marketplace, or there are some of these quick start ones that just allow you to quickly, launch an instance with specific operating systems and even different packages and different configurations. I think there's down here there might even be there's Windows Server 2019 with SQL Server 2017 Enterprise already built in, already together. So if you need that for your environment, you just go there, launch that, and it's all set up and ready to go. So that's kind of a nice thing about some of these AMIs. They all have a ton of stuff built into them, and you can get a system like, okay, I need a SQL server today. Okay, boom, click, there you go. You're up and running. So right now we're just going to launch a Windows Server 2019 base image. There's different thoughts on how to set these up. There's the thought of create my own AMI image with all of the pieces that I want. Like, okay, I want server. Then it's going to need Notepad++. I want, since it has a locked down Internet Explorer on the server, we're going to install Chrome or Firefox. I want to turn Telnet on. I want to turn, different features on the box. Maybe add some of my own programs and things on there. So there's two different thoughts. One is you create an ec2 instance and then install everything that you want, then save that as your own AMI. So then that would show up here. There's this list, my AMIs, and it would show up here. There's one here called test. And then I could select that and launch it, and it would have all the things that I wanted in it. But if, say, there's a new version of Chrome, there's a new version of Notepad++, there's a Windows updates that need to be applied, to the box, or in the case of Linux, there's OS patches that still need to be applied, that need to be put on the box. Then that management then moves to you. Okay, what version of Chrome is on there? Okay, and I need to update Chrome. Then what version of Notepad++ on there? Okay, let's update that. Okay, there's no Windows update. I've created this AMI 8 months ago. So if I make a new one, I've got to go through 8 months of Windows updates to try and get this up to where it's set today. So if we select the Amazon Windows server, they're continually updating these in the background. So anytime there's a bunch of patches that come out, then this server or any of these systems, they'll have versions and dates and everything for when they were updated. Amazon will continue to update them and then give you the ability to select, what date it is. Like this one actually has a date, 2018 3. So this is March 2018. So that gives me some sense that once I install this, I'm not going to have to do a ton of updates and patches. Also, then I can have a script that just goes out, okay, let me go out and do the Google Chrome install myself, because I have scripts to do that, and you can do that yourself. And that's going to pull the latest version of Google Chrome. You can also do like Notepad++. Whenever in your install scripts, you can continue, updating what version of Notepad++ you're using, so whenever it installs, it gets fairly close to the latest version of Notepad++, or whatever other applications that you're installing on your box from the get-go, whatever tools, like maybe a MySQL, management tool, something like that. All of those, can be done, and after this is all set up. So that's the two things. Either put it all together as one and then potentially still have to install everything again, because you're working on a server and it's in the cloud. I definitely would want, if you're using Chrome or Firefox, I definitely will want that updated as soon as possible. So you're still going to have to update that. Notepad++, That's, maybe update that, maybe not. If you get a chance, you might, as you're doing things, you might do that. But Chrome and Firefox, yeah, you want those updated. Windows updates, definitely want all of those updated. So now you're creating, by doing, the AMI, custom AMI, you're kind of creating a double workload. So you have all this, you created the workload of creating the AMI. Now you also create the workload of keeping everything updated. So then you got to go back through, okay, every 6 months I got to recreate this AMI and put it, what's that schedule? Do you do it every month? Do you do it every, I would rather launch the instance clean and then boom, throw all the applications that I want on it that are new. So every time you launch one, you run some scripts against it and install the applications that you want. I have videos on scripts that install applications and use PowerShell and the SSM management in order to get in and install that. But so that's where your quick starts and your my AMIs are are different, and you might pick one over the other. Just depends on I guess how much labor you want to go through of every month or every 2 months, right? Launching your test AMI, your base AMI that you create, and then going back and saving it back, and then updating your scripts if you renamed it to something else. And back, to me, it's a huge headache. Just launch it, install is how I do it. Okay, so here I'm going to select Server 2019, and we're just going to use the free tier one. It's fine. You can select different ones, so as they go up, you've got how many CPUs and how much memory. So depending on your application, right, you may need T2 mediums are usually what I've been launching for most of our applications. Seems to run okay with 2 CPUs and 4 gigs of RAM. If you're doing something heavier that needs a lot of memory, that's you can go crazy large, 96 CPUs and 384 gigs of memory. That's going to be costly. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but all these different things are there. Okay, so now we're going to go next, and we're going to configure our instance. So we're going to create one instance. Then we're going to select the VPC that we want to put it in. So that's our network. We got some subnets. I don't really care which one it is, which one it's put in. Now, if you're doing something that's got maybe 2 servers that are load balanced, that you're going to be, or that are like one's primary, one's standby, so kind of a failover situation, you would want to put one in like the 1A network here and the other one in the 1C. So you want them in different networks. So if there's a problem with that subnet, then the traffic can switch to the other subnet. If you put them both in the same subnet, you may have problems. If something happens to that subnet, then both are down, right? Okay, so auto assign public IP. So this, when you launch an instance, it will get a local IP address, usually like 172.16 or 172.32, something like that, a private IP address. And in order to get to that box, you would need some other method for jumping into some other system and then moving over, we call them jump boxes or toolboxes or something that are on the internet that you can jump into, and then RDP to that box and then RDP to this other box that's deep inside your network, because in general, those boxes, the systems that you launch are not on the internet automatically. So you can allow the system to get a public IP address. This is not a static public IP address. This is it's kind of DHCP. It's kind of whenever you turn off the system in AWS and then turn it back on, it's going to get a new IP address. So as long as you don't turn it off, that IP address should stay there for the the life of the box. The internal IP address that's put on the box is there forever, whether you have the box on or off or whatever. If you're just rebooting so you install an application inside your ec2 instance, you install an application and have to reboot it, that will not change the IP address. That's like an OS system level. Amazon still thinks it's running even though the OS is rebooting. So that's one thing to think about in order to access these boxes. Giving them a public IP address is, if you're going to access them directly, then you would need to do that. Okay, so I don't have an active directory anywhere. I do want to give it a IAM role. So these are credentials that allow you to do management onto the box. So I have a role set up, SSM, which is the system management role, and that will allow me to run scripts against it and do things like that. So if you don't have one of those, you need to go create one, and I'll probably make a video about creating that at another time. Okay, so the shutdown behavior, what do you want to do when it shuts down? Do you want it to just stop or terminate? If this is a box that you're throwing up, you're just putting it up there for testing, you're gonna put it up there, you gotta run a script, do some code, get some data, bring it back, and then turn it off, and then you don't care what happens to it, then you can terminate it. Otherwise, you would just want to stop it. Now, this is another thing here, protect against accidental termination. So if this is a production box and you want to make sure that nobody comes in and goes, oh, look at all these boxes running, click, 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 shut down or terminate, which deletes them, then you want to make sure to click the protect from accidental termination. There's scripts that you can do this. If you have a bunch of them, you can run a script against all your boxes to turn the switch on. So that's key. If this is going into production, make sure you turn that on. Okay, so you can get this monitoring, you get extra CloudWatch monitoring details and different things like that. And typically we're gonna run them on shared hardware. So all right, so let's go to the next tab. Now we're gonna add storage. So here's kind of a tricky point for adding storage. So if you notice over here, the IOPS. So how many IO operations can we run on this? So it starts at 100 and burstable to 3000. So if you have a very IO intensive server that you know you're going to be writing a lot of data. I mean, web servers are typically not, but often more memory, memory conscious. But if you have something that really needs to be able to write a lot of data to disk, like you're doing a lot of logging or something like that, then you would want, then you can have this change. Like if you start adding and making the drive size bigger, like if I go 100 gig, then that's going to bring my IOPS up to 300. So if I go actually like a terabyte, then it just goes to 3000. So you could do it that way. You can also, if we go back to 30, I can also switch this to provisioned IOPS and just tell it what I want. So you have to be aware that the more IOPS that you're going to be giving it, the more your cost is going to go up, and it can go way up real fast. So kind of be aware of what, maybe do some testing of your application on a box that you have in your lab or something like that, so that you know what you actually need in order to get that working and keep it working, that you're not going to run out of resources. Because you can watch, if you're copying files to a box that has a limited number of IOPS, you can watch they're like released every minute. So it'll go, there'll be no data transfer, then it'll go up, give the data transfer, and then go back down, then it'll wait a minute, then go up and down, because it's releasing those IOPS to you every minute. So it's kind of, it gets kind of screwy when you're trying to put, but if you're only pushing your setup files, you're only pushing those every once in a while, and that's not production, so you got to weigh it, right? You got to weigh it back and forth do I need all these IOPS all the time, or do I just need them, can we deal with having them be less and just having to wait a little bit while our, updates and patches and all that are coughing to the box. Okay, so next we're going to add tags. So we definitely want to add tags, of course. We need a billing tag, so that when we go to do our cost analysis of what boxes are costing what at the end of the month, then we can sort and arrange things by billing tag, and that will tell me where all my costs are lining up. So that's going to place that billing tag on the instances and on all our volumes. So now that we need a security group. So I'm just going to have create a new security group. Of course, we need RDP from 3389 in order to be able to remote. This is a Windows box. So if this were a Linux box, we of course would need SSH open. So, but this right now is open to the world. So if we really wanted to do this correctly, we would lock this down to our local network, something that we know, like your router's IP address. You can get that by going to Google, typing what's my IP, and then Google will tell you what your IP address is, and putting that in there rather than just being the zeros, all zeros being open to the internet. But for this example, we're just going to review and launch, because it's going to tell me my security group is open to the world, which for this example is fine, but you need to lock down where that is coming from to add some security to your instances. Okay, so now we need to have a key pair. So I have a key pair called my Aws Key Pair, and I've gone over those in some of the scripting things. This is just a way for Amazon to get you the generated administrator password of the box. So once you create these key pairs, you download a PEM file that you need to match this. Otherwise, it will not decode and be able to get you that password. So now this is going to take a little while. It's going to go around, start launching things, copying that AMI base setup over to your space in AWS. This is very similar to what it's doing right now. Is very similar to cloning a system in VMware. So we're just cloning this base template. So now it's cloned over, it's running. It's going to be taking a little while to start. There's some status checks, some different monitoring that you get for CPU, disk reads, writes, things like that. In order to, so this is another thing that you need to look at is, so here we can see CPU utilization, disk reads, disk write operations, network operations, but what we're not going to get is memory utilization and disk space utilization. So we're going to have to, that is another video, of course, but that's where that SSM agent comes in, and there's a monitoring system, CloudWatch, that Amazon has, that you have to install agents onto the system in order to get that information. So just know that if you're just launching this and you go, oh, look, it has some information that I can see. It's not all the information. There are pieces. So this is like outside of the EC2 instance, kind of trying to look in. So it can only see what CPU utilization that it's giving to your EC2 instance. It can only see what disk reads are going into this black box that it can't see inside of. And it knows what network's kind of going in and out. But what it can't see is what's inside the black box of the EC2 instance. So that's where we need to install agents into it that will then get us the disk space and memory utilization, and also has what the CPU thinks it's doing inside the Windows box as well when we add those agents into it. Okay, so this is still trying to come up. Okay, now it's up and running. So I should be able to go actions and be able to say get Windows password. Now, as I said before, there's this key pair that we create, and then we have to go and get, if I can find it, I know I put it somewhere. Okay. And we copy this key pair in, and we click decrypt password. So now this right here is our administrator password on this box. So I'm going to destroy this box. So if you see the password, it's fine. Okay, so I can come to actions, say connect, download the remote desktop file. And once that comes up, I click connect and paste in my Windows password. You can't see what I'm doing because it's in a different window. Say yes. I'm going to have to add that window here. Now, let me add that here real quick. Window capture, RDP. Okay. Okay, so, wow, this is going to be weird. Okay, so now the RDP window is opening. Okay, so we've got our ec2 instance up and running, and it's gonna come up, and now we can do whatever we need to do to it, and install your software, do whatever you kind of need to do, but it's just a nice Windows box out here on the internet. It has some information, their feedback, and their ec2 Windows guide. Once it comes up completely, it often puts in this upper corner, puts the public and private IP address, there it is, on there, so, and the zone and everything else. Right now it has this public IP address of 52.53.170.197, and that's what I remoted into, and has a private IP address of 172.31.11.247. So until I destroy this box, that 172 address is going to be the same. If I were to have Amazon shut it down, so if I come back here to this box here and hit close, and I see that, okay, this over here says 52.53.170. If I come here to actions, instant state, stop, and actually click stop, then it's going to shut the box down. And once it gets shut down, this public IP address is going to be released back into Amazon's pool of public IP addresses. So that can be assigned to someone else's ec2 instance. So if you're thinking that you can always use that IP address even though you're shutting your box down, you need to be aware that it's not going to stay, and you could potentially be trying to get it connected to that box again after you shut it down, and it's going to go, nope, this is somebody else's box now. So those you have to watch, you have to keep track of. There are elastic IPs that are permanent, but you only get a few of those. So those I leave for specific tasks that I need, VPN tunnels and things like that. So, but we'll see what it comes up with this time. So now it's 54.183. So it's some other different IP address. So in order to connect, we would have to connect to this new IP address. All right. Well, that's kind of how just generating and launching and some theory behind AMIs and launching ec2 instances and what information you get and how to connect to them and things like that. So this video went on way too long for what I really wanted it to be, but I hope you found it helpful. If you have other things that you want to see about ec2 instances and what information you get, just comment down below. I'll be making more. I seem to be making a lot of Amazon AWS videos because I deal with that every day at work, and people have been liking them, so I'll keep making them. All right, well, thanks for watching this one. I'm just gonna jump off right now because this has been a half-hour video, which was only supposed to be 10 minutes. So anyway, thanks for watching, and like I said, subscribe to my channel. You'll get more of this stuff. Comment down below if you have any other ideas or any information that you want more about AWS and how to use it. All right, take care.